Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Rosie and I'm an Education Officer at ChildNet, and I'm joined by Tom, who is an Assistant Education Manager at ChildNet. We really appreciate you joining us today for this webinar about online safety during the transition from primary to secondary school. This webinar is the 6th in a series that we are hosting for educators. So let's start with a little introduction about who we are. ChildNet is an online safety charity whose main aim is to make the internet a great and safe place for children and young people. We do this in a number of ways. One way is with the education team, which is what we are a part of, and we travel to schools around the UK to help children from 3 to 18 years old, parents and carers, and professionals like yourselves to learn about online safety. We also develop a range of free educational resources that are available on our website to support you in delivering online safety messages in your setting. ChildNet also organises online safety events, like Safer Internet Day and the ChildNet Film Competition, to help raise the profile of online safety. Another way we work towards our aim is working with the UK government and internet industry to encourage and advise them on how they can work to help keep young people safe online as well. ChildNet are a part of the UK Safer Internet Centre. This is a partnership between 3 leading online safety organisations: ourselves, SWGFL, and the Internet Watch Foundation. Through the partnership, we offer a whole host of resources, services, and events. SWGFL offer lots of useful tools for schools, including the Professionals Online Safety Helpline. The Internet Watch Foundation work to remove child sexual abuse imagery from the internet. So that's a little bit about us, and now we'll get started. I'll take just a moment to let you know that the Q&A feature is open, and we'll be answering any questions you have at the end of today's 30-minute session. So feel free to put anything you'd like to ask in there. Tom is now going to give you a quick overview of the webinar.
Thank you, Rosie. So this webinar is around the transition from primary to secondary school and the changes this can bring to young people's lives online. This transition may be at different times for different young people, but often happens when they are around the age of 11. We will start by explaining why online safety is so important for young people at this time and how this topic is covered in national curriculums. Then we'll move on to risks that can occur with strategies you can use and share with your parent and carer community. We will also be directing you towards some resources that can work well with this age range. So we're going to start with the importance of supporting young people's online safety during this time. Young people moving from primary to secondary school will have many big changes ahead of them. Schools will usually run transition days, have discussions with their classes, send letters home, and offer pastoral support. However, the change to young people's lives online can take a backseat or be forgotten during these preparations. At home, the support and preparation can be more focused on other things, particularly logistics, such as buying new school uniform and planning the route to school. Parents and carers might not focus on the online aspects without a gentle reminder and some support. As educators, you can help to raise awareness of this being an important aspect too. There are other factors that can impact young people's online safety during this time. As young people start secondary school, they may go online more frequently with less or no adult guidance. If there is something they're concerned about online, they may feel less comfortable coming to teachers and staff who are new to them. However, it's really important that young people can access experiences online, which may be vital for their social lives, managing their schoolwork, and generally having fun. This is why schools should be aware of how they can support young people with online safety during this time and the risks that could occur during this pivotal point in their lives. I'm now going to hand back over to Rosie, who will talk about how this topic fits in with the curriculums of the 4 nations.
Thanks, Tom. We're aware that for teachers, it can be difficult with an already stretched learning time to know when to provide this support. So it's good to know that the curriculums for Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3 do cover some important points of online safety. You can see here where the links to the curriculums are in the different nations of the UK. These cover some key areas such as digital wellbeing, understanding online pressures, and knowing how to get support, which will all be useful for young people moving to secondary school. However, as these issues can be taught at any point in their Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3 teaching, it may be that some messaging won't be taught until some young people have already experienced some of these potential risks online due to how the curriculum falls in their schools. That's why it's important that we think about what young people are encountering online during this period and think about strategies you can use as educators to support them. As well as being part of the national curriculums, we know that when working with young people, it's important to support them with the challenges they may be facing online. As educators with so many other things to focus on, we know it can feel difficult to keep on top of the current things that young people are accessing. Luckily, as an education team, we go into schools and talk to thousands of children each month and hear from many teachers and school staff about what issues they're facing in school. This gives us a great insight into the potential risks or issues for young people's online safety during this transition. So today we will help to highlight some of these for you. To start us off, we're going to think about the potential risk of new devices. It's likely that many young people will receive new devices as they move on to secondary school. This could be a new phone to help keep them connected as they travel to school, or a new laptop or tablet to help them with their work. The Children and Parents Media Use and Attitudes Report 2023 from Ofcom has found that under the age of 12, children often use tablets as their main way of going online. But over the age of 12, this becomes a phone. This reflects how many young people will be encountering different devices and using them more regularly. When making new friends or interacting with older students, they may feel pressure to get devices like games consoles to keep up with their peers. This potential desire for new devices can lead to financial pressure on these young people and their families. For young people who do receive new devices, there are potential new risks. This might include the content that they're seeing on their device, which could be inappropriate for them. Other potential risks could come from who they are in contact with. It's likely they will be interacting with many new people online as new friendships are forming, or that they are interacting in new ways, such as in group chats or on social media. We'll talk more in detail about these risks later on. There may also be potential risks around what they're posting online. It might be that they may be sharing more about themselves than they had before, or that they may not realise that they're sharing information like their location. If young people are starting to use new platforms like social media or sharing more in group chats, they may not be aware they need to be careful with their personal information in these new situations. These risks can become more prevalent if they have a new device that they're using often without supervision, especially if prior to this, they will be more closely monitored. To help support these young people, we'll be highlighting some key tips and resources which you can use with those who may start to experience these risks and share with their parents and carers. New devices can provide a source of entertainment, communication, and be very fun. However, this can provide a new challenge for young people as they begin to navigate an increase in their screen time. It may be difficult for young people with a new device to balance the time they're spending online with their offline hobbies, or spot the signs that they've been online too long and should take a break. As educators, it might be that you see they are showing signs like being tired, sore eyes, or perhaps seem to have a change in mood. It's good to remember that managing their screen time is a skill that needs to be developed. So let's come on to our advice to see how we can support them with the challenges of new devices. Our first strategy is to provide information to parents and carers at key points when young people may be starting to get new devices. Perhaps it's when you notice some of the young people in primary starting to get phones, around Christmas, after their SATs, or at the start of secondary. When we're in schools, we hear this can happen at a range of ages, often starting for some children in lower Key Stage 2. Listening out when young people are talking about this will give you a great idea of when this could be most useful in your setting. Reminding yourself of your school's phone policy when considering the challenges children may face with their first phone will allow for clear boundaries and expectations. Having these in place and making sure that all staff and young people are aware of them can help to model a healthy balance of when they should be using devices. A useful way to start discussions around new devices in the classroom is the Marvin Wants a Phone video from ChildNet's resource Moving On Up. In the video, Marvin is going to secondary school soon and wants a phone because all of his friends have one. But his dad doesn't think he should have one yet. Learners are asked to think about Marvin's feelings around getting a phone, the worries Marvin's dad may have, and how Marvin could have a phone safely. I'll talk a little bit more about how you can use these videos later on in the session. There are a few useful resources you can direct parents and carers to for support, so I'll recommend just a couple. A great place to start is sharing the First Phone checklist from our Moving On Up resource. This resource has tips and advice for parents to consider and questions to check when they are setting up their child's first phone. It considers points around when parents might choose to give their child their first phone, what phone they can choose, setting it up, and how to get their child started. It can be difficult for parents and carers to consider all the aspects of their child's first phone, especially if it's their eldest child, so they haven't had any experience before. So directing them to this resource can really help them to consider the details of what this will look like. Sharing ChildNet's family agreement can also help parents and carers to establish expectations around new devices and discuss this as a family. Another useful resource to make parents and carers aware of is the Internet Matters Settings Controls page, which can help them to put parental settings and controls in place. The step-by-step guide shows how to manage parental controls for many things, such as phones, broadband networks, social media, consoles, and search engines. With the rising use of end-to-end encryption on apps, just putting parental controls on the router at home is not going to be so effective. We would recommend putting parental controls on all devices that young people are using. There are a few ways that you could share this information to try and direct parents and carers to it. It could be that you include it in your newsletter, send a letter home, share it on social media, or make a dedicated page on your school website about it. I'm now going to pass over to Tom, who will talk about friendships and friend requests online.
Thank you, Rosie. So children moving up to secondary school will be meeting lots of new people and are likely to be part of a much bigger school. So this can be an exciting and emotional time when new friendships emerge, but also one where old friendships change or can be put under pressure. Whatever their situation, we need to think about every child. So the child with lots of their class from primary school at their new school, and the child who is the only one. The child who really misses their old friends, and the child looking forward to a fresh start. Whatever their situation, managing the ups and downs of friendships online can be a challenge. Friend requests online are another aspect to explore. If young people have a phone and are using social media or playing games online, they are likely to receive friend requests from their new school friends and any old friends who might now have phones. It can be very nice that someone wants to connect online, and they might worry they'll be left out or appear rude if they refuse or say no. If they're getting lots of friend requests, they could accept one from someone they do not know. Whether requests are from new or old school friends, the range of usernames and sites that young people use can make it hard for them to know who the request is actually from. They might also receive friend requests from people they do not know. Here are some strategies to help young people to prepare for changing friendships and friend requests. Firstly, we would recommend having regular discussions. This applies to learners before and after they move to secondary school. You could do this at circle time or informed time. Remind them that their existing friends and friendships can change. Some will get stronger, but others may weaken as they meet new people and get older. For primary age children, you might choose to focus on how they can keep in touch with each other and the special time they have had together as a class. Suggest that they talk to their parents and carers about still seeing and meeting up with those friends who are not going to the same school. For secondary age learners, it's a good idea to address friendship and friend requests on transition days and to revisit them through assemblies and lessons in those early stages. To support you with these discussions in lesson time, we have 2 lesson plans with slides from Moving On Up. The lesson for primary schools explores how technology can help with the move to secondary school and changing friendships. There's a situation where 2 friends from primary school seem to be drifting apart as one makes new friends. Learners get a chance to reflect on this and think about how they would handle these situations. In the secondary lesson, it starts by exploring friendships online and offline. There is a chance to talk about how devices can help them keep in touch and build new friendships. Learners then work together to decide on the best way to respond to friend requests. For each of the 4 friend requests in the activity, our advice appears after the class have discussed what to do. The lesson goes on to explore scenarios where friendships are changing at the start of secondary school as well. As mentioned, both lessons have slides and a lesson plan to follow. The slides are on PowerPoint, so you can add to them and adapt them as necessary. I also mentioned friend requests as an issue. These will usually come in on social media and games. It's very likely they'll be getting many more friend requests at the start of secondary school. That can be very flattering and exciting. Remind learners that friendships can change and they do not have to connect online straight away because they'll be seeing each other a lot at school. If they are unsure if it's actually their new friend or an old friend from primary school, sharing and checking usernames is key. With new school friends, they could check this in person at school. With old school friends, they could check by messaging a mutual friend. Whether a friendship changes or they mistakenly add the wrong person, let them know they can just unfriend or block those contacts. In our Moving On Up resource, we have a video where Joel is reflecting on all the friend requests he accepted when he started secondary school. However, he's not so close to some of them now and feels uncomfortable that they are seeing when he is online and the things he shares. Learners get a chance to discuss why Joel accepted so many requests and to think about what he can do now. Some friend requests can come from people they do not know or people claiming to be a friend of a friend. So if they're unsure or have doubts about a friend request they've accepted, here are some key reminders and tips that we share with learners in school. They should speak to an adult if someone they do not know asks for their personal information, to meet up, or for images of them. They should not accept invitations for live video chats from someone they do not know and tell an adult straight away. You could cover this by asking learners what they would do if a new online contact asks them how old they are or asks them for a video chat. Rosie is now going to talk about another issue that we hear about when we visit schools.
Thanks, Tom. Another important part to think about with online friendships is group chats. Whether they were involved in them at primary school or not, at some point they may be likely to be invited to join a class or even a year group chat at secondary school. We often hear about whole year group chats when we visit schools and issues arising in that environment. Whilst young people can use these positively to support each other and check when homework is due, they can also be areas where very complex social interactions take place. These could be things like, what do they do if someone is criticising them or their friend and nobody is defending them? Why is their new friend suddenly being mean? Why is there a new group chat that they're not in? And what do they do if other people are adding strangers into the group chat? It can be very hard for young people to know what to do in these situations. So let's have a look at how you can support them with this. We would recommend reminding learners to keep group chats to people they know and to speak with a trusted adult if they have any worries, such as if people are being mean. It's worth talking openly about big group chats. You can share key advice with them during these discussions, such as making sure they don't share any personal information if they're in a group chat with people they don't know. It can also be good to discuss that group chats can feel like private places, but that actually these could be seen by anyone, such as other friends, families, or teachers, so they should think before they send a message. They can also be fun, but it's likely there'll be lots of messages and notifications, and if people fall out, it can be upsetting for lots of people. Whatever they might feel, it's perfectly okay to not be in or join group chats, to not have social media, and to not play online games. To help you discuss group chats with your learners, we have Sarisha's video. She is at a different school to most of her friends from primary school and uses group chats to stay in touch. However, she now has some with her new friends too and is feeling a bit overwhelmed. People are getting frustrated when she does not reply straight away and she's losing sleep. Learners are asked about the best parts of group chats and how she can explain to her friends why she does not always reply straight away. As we mentioned earlier, I'll talk a little bit later on how to use these videos. I'm going to pass back over to Tom now to talk about peer pressure and how this can play out online.
Thank you, Rosie. So on a simple level, there is the pressure to be online. The older children get, the more likely it becomes they will have their own phone, and there are those with their own tablets, laptops, and games consoles too. These devices are a key part of young people's social lives, and finding the right balance is tricky. There are also challenges for those young people who choose or are not allowed to have their own phone or to be on social media. In a new environment, young people can find comfort when they meet people who share the same interests. They may also feel a pressure to fit in and be doing the same things as their peers. For example, the games they want to play are likely to change, whether this is due to them finding out new games from their peers or from wanting to play games with more mature gameplay. It could also be that the games they're hearing about are not appropriate for their age. Generally, attending secondary school means that they are now mixing with new peers and older learners who are likely to be using apps and games that expose them to new or more serious risks. I'm now going to talk through some strategies and resources that can help young people to manage these pressures. We would recommend having regular conversations about their devices and what they're doing online. This shows your learners that you are interested in their online lives and gives you really useful insights. Remember to include all learners in your discussions, especially those who don't have their own devices or spend less time online. You might choose a scenario where people are laughing about something online, but some people don't get the joke. Encourage your classes to think about other people's feelings and try not to make people feel left out. At primary school, you may well be seeing some of the issues I've just mentioned. If lots of learners in year 4 are getting phones, start those discussions about using them safely and having a healthy balance with technology. If learners in year 5 are using social media, discuss the importance of privacy settings and speak to parents and carers. At secondary school, you could have discussions around the positive and negative aspects of having a phone. You could also explore the apps that are out there and the pros and cons of them. Whatever stage they are at, it's always good to give reminders of seeking help if ever anything worries, confuses, or upsets them online. In moving on up, we have a video covering the pressure to fit in. Aaron's cousin tells him that joining in with everything going online is a great way to make new friends. Learners are asked how they feel about this advice, how to make new friends, as well as being given a chance to talk about individuality and having their own interests. Parents and carers can also be very helpful and need support to address these pressures. There are useful sites to help families decide which apps and games are suitable for their children. Common Sense Media has reviews of most apps that young people use, with the views of parents as well as young people. The Family Video Game Database has reviews of games as well as suggestions for games like this for a variety of ages, and this can help them to find games that are more age appropriate. These sites help parents and carers find out more about apps and give them alternatives to some of the 16 or 18 rated games that some young people at secondary school want to play. As Rosie mentioned, you can also steer parents and carers towards Internet Matters and their settings controls page. The step-by-step guides can help them to put parental controls on their family's devices. This can reduce the chances of their children seeing or accessing certain sites. Putting sites like Common Sense Media and Internet Matters on the school website or in newsletters can really help too. Now I'm going to talk about an issue that is particularly relevant at this stage. With more access to phones comes a greater risk of online bullying, sadly. When we visit primary schools, bullying in group chats is often something that teachers raise. At secondary school, we also hear about how these issues are occurring on social media. Their levels of cognitive development can mean that learners don't anticipate or recognise the hurt that they can cause online. There are also those who go out to upset and bully others. Piaget's stages of cognitive development suggest that children of this age are just starting to appreciate how others think and to develop the skills to empathise with others. While some young people can do this, there are others who are not there yet. And this issue is exacerbated by online disinhibition. Being behind a screen can mean that we don't see other users as people, and those mean comments made online are not seen in the same way as something said face to face. We also know that the online world can be one where people freely comment and express their thoughts without thinking about the feelings of others. This is also a stage when the bullying can become sexualized. Their bodies, hormones and feelings are changing, and they're increasingly exposed to a part of online culture where people are judged by the way they look. I'll now talk about some of the resources we have to tackle online bullying and sexualized bullying. In the Moving On Up resource, there is a video with Isla that tackles the experience of seeing online bullying going on and how upsetting it can be. Learners are asked to think about why people are joining in and not telling them to stop. They're also asked to think about what Isla could do and how adults can help. You can use this to encourage your learners to think about and discuss upstanders and bystanders. We also have a resource called Just a Joke that tackles sexualised bullying and is aimed at 9 to 12-year-olds. We ran a project tackling online sexual harassment and then received extra funding to tackle this at an earlier age. Just a Joke was designed to begin to address these issues in an age-appropriate way and gives teachers the flexibility to choose more mature examples if needed, because you know your classes best. Just a Joke has 3 lesson plans and some quick activities, a teacher guide and a PowerPoint quiz. There's also a snakes and ladders style game with different scenarios for players to discuss if they land on a hotspot. If it would cause a positive reaction, they move forward 1 space, 1 step backwards if it would be negative. As I mentioned, you can select the scenarios that best suit your class. One key thing to consider for learners just starting secondary school is that everything and everybody is new to them. How and who do they report bullying to? Let them know who they can speak to and keep reminding them. Posters of your pastoral team can also really help them too. Remember, they may not feel opening up to teachers and staff yet, and some can even be a bit intimidated. I'm going to hand back over to Rosie now.
Thanks, Tom. We've mentioned the Moving On Up resource in some of our advice so far, but I wanted to draw your attention to a really valuable part of it, which is the videos. There are 5 videos around different online aspects of moving to secondary school. This includes many of the topics that we've discussed today, such as new devices, online relationships, and online bullying, which can really help to open up conversations. Each video has a scenario that a young person talks through, questions to discuss, and thoughts and top tips from the ChildNet team. Hearing it from another young person's point of view means that they can relate to these more easily and will hopefully feel confident to discuss the issues that they've heard about. You can use these videos as short tools for discussion, or if it's clearly a topic that your learners are interested in, you can use these as a launchpad to lead your learners onto further discussions and tasks. There are a few ways you could approach this. It could be that you use them in the classroom as the start to a task or discussion in a relevant lesson or in form time. It could also be that you choose to send these home as homework for learners to reflect on the discussion questions and come back together to discuss in a group at a later point. It can also be useful to share these with parents and carers, so they can view them with their children and have a discussion around some of these key topics themselves. We're coming towards the end of our presentation, so let's go over some of the key messages that we've covered today. It's important to remember that children and young people's digital well-being may be impacted by all the risks we have looked at so far. That's why we suggest approaching it by using discussions and guidance to support them. Change online, like receiving a new device, being added to a group chat, or joining social media, can often create feelings of excitement, curiosity, and a sense of freedom. But it can also create more negative emotions for some young people of uncertainty or feeling left behind or lonely. It may be that during this time, the pressures and changes that we have talked about are affecting their emotions around going online. Because of this, it's key to emphasize that all the emotions they are having are valid and to help them to know how to respond. By promoting conversations around their online lives, you can help them to do this. If you're in a primary setting, it could be that you hold these as starters to PSHE or computing lessons, at registration times, or in the final minutes before the end of the day. If you're in secondary, you could hold these in some of the first few tutor times you have, or in starters to relevant lessons. To help promote this approach, we have 4 key tips that sum up a lot of the messages we have talked about today. Firstly, talk to them about online safety little and often. Try and fit in opportunities before they leave primary and after they join secondary, and show them that you value online safety by making it a frequent topic of conversation. Secondly, offer help and support. Make sure young people are aware of who they can go to get help and what support is out there. Thirdly, keep it relevant. Talk to them to find out what issues they may be facing online and use resources like Moving On Up so they can feel comfortable talking about what they are experiencing. And finally, support parents and carers. Let them know about websites like Common Sense Media and the Family Video Game Database to help guide them to look at the apps and games their children want to use. Share the First Phone checklist and use the family agreement if they want help managing the use of devices at home. Having these on the school website can really help too. So that brings us to the end of our presentation, but we do have time for some questions. We'll just take a look to see if any questions have come in, and we will also share a link to our evaluation survey that we will be grateful if you could fill out. It shouldn't take more than 30 seconds or so to fill out, and it will help us to inform our future work. If you have any questions later on, do feel free to email us at education@childnet.com and we will try to help. Okay. So we'll just take a moment to have a little look.
There are no questions in the Q&A at the moment. I'll just have another quick check, but I'm going to put the evaluation survey into the chat now. Hopefully you can see that. And I'll just check the Q&A again. No, nothing has come in as yet. I might just put a link to moving on up into the chat as well.
I believe that's already been put, Tom, but...
Oh, okay.
Just wait a couple of minutes.
Yeah, so please do ask any questions. I was as teacher at secondary, Rosie at primary, so between us we should be able to sort of answer any questions you might have or any further questions you have about the resources. Please pop them in the Q&A. Okay, if that is it, well, thank you everyone for attending, and please, do email education@childnet.com if you have any further questions or feedback, and please do complete those evaluations. That'd be really helpful for us. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.